Lieutenant Amanda Maverick Mitchell's fingers danced across the holographic controls of the HMS Magellan's bridge, her movements precise yet fluid. The neural interface hummed softly against her temples, translating thought into action faster than physical touch alone. Through the sprawling viewport, the distant stars painted streaks of light across the void, a testament to their vessel's impressive speed. "Sensor contact, bearing 035, announced Lieutenant Marcus Davidson, his voice carrying the measured tone of a man who'd called out thousands of similar readings. "Profile matches hegemony patterns, Captain. Looks like a defense fleet." Captain James Thompson rose from his command chair, his weathered features illuminated by the soft blue glow of tactical displays. The bridge crew maintained their positions with practiced ease, though an undercurrent of excitement rippled through the compartment. First contact scenarios were rare enough. First contact with the notoriously xenophobic hegemony was the stuff careers were made of. "Show me," Thompson ordered, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of southern charm and steel that had earned him the call sign Iron Wolf. The main display shifted, revealing a cluster of angular vessels arranged in the hegemony's signature hexagonal formation. Their hulls gleamed with the distinctive iridescent sheen of advanced energy shielding, a technology that had kept them isolated and unchallenged for centuries. "They're scanning us," Mitchell reported, a slight smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "The masking systems are working perfectly. As far as they can tell, we're running on good old-fashioned nuclear propulsion." Thompson nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. The Magellan represented humanity's greatest achievement in military deception, a warship disguised as a primitive exploration vessel. Her true capabilities lay hidden beneath layers of technological camouflage, waiting to be unleashed. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Sophia Ramirez announced, her hands flying over her console. "Text only," translated from their standard format. "They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our purpose in their space." Tactical analysis. Thompson directed his question to Davidson. "7 ships, Captain. 2 heavy cruisers, 4 destroyers, and what appears to be their command vessel. Energy readings suggest they're running hot. Shields up, weapons primed. They're taking no chances." Mitchell's neural interface pulsed as she ran preliminary evasion patterns through the ship's combat computer. "Their formation has gaps, sir. If they stick to known hegemony doctrine, I can thread us through at least 3 different vectors they won't be able to cover effectively." Thompson allowed himself a small smile. The hegemony's rigid adherence to traditional combat formations was about to become their greatest weakness. "Let's introduce ourselves properly, shall we? Ms. Ramirez, send them our first contact package. Standard diplomatic protocols. Nothing to suggest we're anything more than an exploratory vessel that got a little lost." The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The first contact package contained carefully crafted cultural and technological data designed to reinforce the hegemony's presumed superiority. Let them think they were dealing with primitives. Surprise was humanity's greatest ally. "Package sent," Ramirez confirmed. "Response incoming." "Oh, this is rich. They're ordering us to power down our primitive engines and prepare for inspection. They're calling us quaint." "Perfect," Thompson said, settling back into his command chair. "Lieutenant Mitchell, begin maneuver pattern Delta. Let's show them just how quaint we can be. All hands, battle stations, quiet protocol." Throughout the massive ship, crews moved to their combat positions without klaxons or announcements. The Magellan's true weapons, quantum-locked railguns, phase-shifted missile batteries, and modular strike craft disguised as cargo containers remained dormant but ready. "Sir," Davidson reported, "they're moving to surround us. Standard hegemony containment pattern." "Let them come," Thompson replied, his voice carrying the calm confidence that had seen him through countless engagements. "Lieutenant Mitchell, you have permission to demonstrate human innovation when they get close enough. Let's give them a proper welcome to our corner of space." The bridge crew focused on their stations, each fighting to contain their anticipation. The hegemony was about to learn a crucial lesson about judging books by their covers and humans by their technology. Supreme War Leader Xthrax observed the human vessel through the command deck's crystalline viewport, his upper appendages twitching with barely contained disdain. The ship's primitive design offended his aesthetic sensibilities. All brutal angles and exposed structural supports, lacking the elegant curves that marked proper hegemony engineering. "My lord," his senior tactical officer reported, "the human vessel is executing another course change. Their trajectory appears irregular." "Irregular how?" Xthrax demanded, all four eyes narrowing. "They're violating standard combat mathematics, my lord. Their turns ignore optimal engagement angles. They're burning fuel at an illogical rate. It's as if they're deliberately making mistakes." Aboard the HMS Magellan, Lieutenant Amanda Mitchell took another sip of her steaming coffee, her neural interface translating thought into action faster than physical controls could allow. The mug, secured to her console by magnetic strips, was a violation of about 6 different regulations. Captain Thompson had long since stopped caring about such trivial infractions from his best helm officer. "How's that coffee, Lieutenant?" Thompson asked, watching the hegemony fleet's formation twist to match their seemingly erratic course. "Perfect temperature, sir," Mitchell replied, executing a spiral maneuver that looked like a rookie mistake, but perfectly positioned them between 2 hegemony destroyers, just like their battle timing. The bridge crew maintained their casual demeanor even as the tension mounted. Lieutenant Davidson's fingers flew across his tactical display, analyzing the hegemony's response patterns. "They're adjusting their formation exactly as predicted, Captain. Their combat algorithms can't process our mistakes fast enough to recognize the pattern." "Ms. Ramirez," Thompson called out, "are we still broadcasting on open channels?" "Yes, sir," the communications officer confirmed with a grin. "Every bit of our unprofessional bridge chatter is being picked up by their sensors. Their linguists must be having fits trying to understand why we're discussing coffee grades during combat maneuvers." On the hegemony command ship, Xthrax's frustration mounted as he watched the human vessel weave through his carefully positioned fleet. Their movements defied every principle of space combat his species had refined over centuries of warfare. The human ship's engine trail described loops and curves that would get a hegemony helmsman executed for incompetence. "My lord," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're intercepting their internal communications. They appear to be engaging in casual conversation." "About beverages." "Impossible," Xthrax snarled. "No species discusses refreshments during battle. This must be some form of coded communication." The Magellan executed another clumsy turn, this one bringing their broadside to bear on the nearest hegemony destroyer. To the alien sensors, it appeared the humans had blundered into a vulnerable position. "They're taking the bait," Davidson reported. "Destroyer Group 2 is moving to exploit our exposed flank." Mitchell's fingers danced across her controls, her coffee cup now empty. Threading the needle in 3-2. The Magellan suddenly accelerated, its primitive nuclear drives revealing a burst of speed that should have been impossible. The ship shot through a gap in the hegemony formation that existed for less than 2 seconds, forcing the alien vessels to scatter or risk collision. "Impossible," Xthrax roared as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. "No helmsman can plot a course through that narrow window." "Sir," his tactical officer stammered, "the humans are still broadcasting. Their helmsman is requesting permission to refill her beverage." Thompson's voice carried across the Magellan's bridge, calm as ever. "Permission granted, Lieutenant Mitchell." "Mr. Davidson, note in the log that the hegemony's adaptive response time to unexpected maneuvers is approximately 3.2 seconds slower than our simulations predicted." "Noted, sir," Davidson replied, updating his tactical models. "At this rate, they'll exhaust their primary maneuvering fuel trying to compensate for our erratic course changes within 17 minutes. Mitchell engaged the autopilot for 30 seconds, more than enough time to retrieve a fresh coffee from the bridge dispenser. You know what I love about the hegemony, sir. They're so focused on doing everything the right way, they never consider that the wrong way might be exactly right. Thompson watched the enemy fleet struggling to regroup, their formerly pristine formation now scattered across space like broken glass. Couldn't have said it better myself, Lieutenant. Now, shall we show them what else they're doing wrong? Supreme War Leader Extrax had finally had enough of the humans' insolent display of incompetence. Target their primary hull sections, he commanded, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Full plasma barrage. Let's show these primitives the price of their arrogance. Streams of superheated plasma erupted from the hegemony vessels, painting space in brilliant shades of blue and green. The bombardment was enough to vaporize small moons, the hegemony's standard response to lesser species who didn't know their place in the galaxy. Aboard the Magellan, Chief Engineer Michael O'Reilly watched the incoming barrage through his engineering bay's tactical display. His thick Irish accent carried through the ship's comm system, filled with barely contained amusement. Captain, you might want to see these readings. Their plasma weapons are actually charging our quantum absorption arrays. We're gaining power faster than the reactors can store it. Efficiency rating? Thompson asked, looking as comfortable in his command chair as someone watching a Sunday sports game. 98% conversion rate, sir. These boys didn't get the memo about our hull's molecular reconstruction properties. Each hit is literally making us stronger. O'Reilly chuckled, his fingers dancing across engineering controls. Permission to redirect the excess power to the primary weapons grid. Granted, Thompson replied, then turned to his tactical officer. Mr. Davidson, status of the railgun capacitors. Davidson's grin was audible in his voice. Charged and ready, sir. Quantum entangled rounds are primed. Targeting solutions plotted for their command ship's supposedly impenetrable shield generators. The hegemony fleet continued their barrage, their sensors indicating significant energy transfer to the human vessel, but their tactical officers misinterpreted it as shield degradation rather than power absorption. Their shields are failing, Extrax announced triumphantly. Prepare boarding parties. I want their command crew taken alive to witness the destruction of their vessel. Lieutenant Mitchell's hands hovered over her control interface. Permission to show them our appreciation for the power boost, Captain. By all means, Lieutenant. Mr. Davidson, you may commence with the main course. The Magellan's outer hull shifted, plates realigning to reveal what the hegemony had dismissed as decorative structural elements. The primitive railguns charged with acquired plasma energy, their barrels incorporating quantum manipulation fields that the alien sensors couldn't even detect. Firing solution computed, Davidson announced, compensating for their evasive patterns, not that they're trying very hard to be unpredictable. The first shot streaked across space, a hypersonic round sheathed in quantum fields that simply ignored the hegemony's energy shields. The projectile passed through the barriers as if they didn't exist, striking the command ship's primary shield generator with devastating precision. Extrax stumbled as his vessel shuddered from the impact. Impossible. Their primitive kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Sir, his tactical officer's voice wavered. They're not penetrating the shields. They're bypassing them completely. Our barriers register no impact at all. The rounds are simply appearing inside our defense envelope. O'Reilly's voice carried across the Magellan's command channel. Beautiful shot, Mr. Davidson. The quantum entanglement is holding perfectly. Each round is technically occupying the same space as its target before materialization. No shield in existence can stop something that's already inside it. The Magellan unleashed a full broadside, quantum-enhanced railgun rounds striking with surgical precision. Hegemony ships began losing shield generators, weapon arrays, and engine modules in rapid succession. Sir, Ramirez reported from her communication station, we're picking up significant chatter from their fleet. They're arguing about whether we're actually space demons. Apparently, their religious texts mention something about warriors who ignore the laws of physics. Thompson allowed himself a small chuckle. "Lieutenant Mitchell, bring us about for another pass. Mr. Davidson, target their secondary systems this time. Let's not end this dance too quickly." "Aye, sir," Mitchell replied, executing a turn that looked like a drunken spiral, but perfectly lined up their next firing solution. "You know, I almost feel bad for them. Almost." "Don't," Davidson said, adjusting his targeting parameters. "They shot first. We're just teaching them a lesson about judging a book by its cover, and a warship by its apparent technology level." Through the chaos of battle, O'Reilly's satisfied voice summed up the situation perfectly. "You know what they say about assuming, Captain. Though in this case, it's not making an ass out of them so much as making target practice for us." Commander Jessica Ghost Walker sat in the cockpit of her strike craft, hidden within what the hegemony assumed was a simple cargo pod. Her squadron of 12 pilots waited in similar pods, each vessel bristling with weapons that defied conventional physics. The neural interface at her temples pulsed softly, connecting her to both her ship and her team. "Strike team, sound off," she ordered, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her 3 distinguished flying crosses. "Phoenix 2, ready to dance. Phoenix 3, locked and loaded." The acknowledgments continued until all 12 pilots had reported in. On the Magellan's bridge, Lieutenant Davidson's fingers flew across his tactical display. "Commander Walker, I'm transmitting the latest hegemony formation analysis. They're clustering their point defense systems to protect their command ship." "Received," Walker replied, a predatory smile crossing her face. "They're about to learn why humans named our best maneuvers after ballet moves. Captain, requesting permission to launch Operation Swan Lake." Thompson's voice came through clear and confident. "Permission granted, Commander. Show them why Earth's best pilots train in zero-gravity dance studios." The cargo pods began to shift, outer panels falling away to reveal sleek combat vessels that resembled predatory birds. Their hull design incorporated elements that made them nearly invisible to conventional sensors, not through complex technology, but through the precise application of physics principles the hegemony had never considered. "What manner of trickery is this?" X-Thrax demanded as new contacts suddenly appeared on his tactical display. Those cargo containers were empty. "We scanned them ourselves." Walker's squadron erupted from their hiding places, each ship moving in perfect synchronization. The maneuver they executed would have appeared chaotic to untrained eyes, but it was actually a complex dance choreographed to exploit every blind spot in hegemony sensor systems. "Phoenix Squadron, music if you please," Walker commanded. Lieutenant Ramirez obliged, patching Earth's classical orchestral pieces through the squadron's tactical channel. The 1812 overture filled their cockpits as the strike craft began their deadly ballet. Each pilot moved in perfect time with the music, their neural interfaces translating artistic timing into lethal precision. The hegemony's targeting systems, designed to track logical attack patterns, couldn't predict maneuvers based on classical dance choreography. "Sir," Davidson reported from the Magellan's bridge, "Commander Walker's team is executing their attack run. I'm complementing their approach with some electronic warfare." He grinned as he activated his latest creation. "Transmitting now." The hegemony command channels erupted with what their translation systems interpreted as cultural data. Cat videos, classical music, and fragments of human entertainment broadcasts flooded their communications networks. Their rigid military discipline crumbled in the face of what appeared to be complete insanity. Walker's voice carried over the chaos, calm as ever. "Phoenix 3 and 4, pirouette through their starboard defense screen. 5 and 6, grand jeté past their port batteries. The rest of you, follow my lead for the final." Her strike craft spun through space in impossible arcs, each movement timed perfectly to the crescendos of Tchaikovsky. Hegemony gunners found themselves targeting empty space as the human ships moved like dancers through a zero-gravity stage. "Commander," one of her pilots called out, "they're trying to predict our patterns by analyzing the music." Walker laughed. "Switch to jazz." Let's see them try to calculate the physics of improvisation. The sudden shift from classical structure to free-form jazz completely overwhelmed the hegemony's combat computers. Their targeting systems, attempting to identify patterns in the seemingly random movements, began to crash. On his command ship, X-Thrax watched in horror as the human strike craft danced through his fleet's defenses. How can they coordinate such precise attacks while moving so chaotically? Phoenix Squadron, Walker commanded as they lined up their final attack run. Time for the standing ovation. Target their sensor arrays with quantum torpedoes. Let's show them the grand final. The strike craft moved as one, their quantum weapons striking with devastating precision. Each hit was timed perfectly to the jazz rhythm playing through their cockpits, turning destruction into art. Strike complete, Walker reported to the Magellan. All primary targets neutralized. The audience seems stunned by our performance, Captain. Excellent work, Commander, Thompson replied. Though I believe we still have a few more acts before the show is over. Marine Captain Emily Valkyrie Rodriguez stood in the Magellan's supposedly vulnerable cargo section, her powered combat armor humming quietly. The neural interface integrated with her suit displayed tactical data across her helmet's heads-up display, tracking the movement of 30 hegemony boarding craft approaching their position. They took the bait, she reported, a wolfish grin spreading across her face. Looks like they want to say hello personally. Her team of Marines, call sign Mischief Squad, had transformed the cargo bay into a combat zone that would have made Sun Tzu proud. What appeared to be random cargo containers and structural supports were actually carefully planned killing grounds, designed to exploit every weakness in hegemony combat doctrine. Remember, folks, Rodriguez addressed her squad. They're expecting primitive humans with basic weapons. Let's give them a proper welcome. She checked her modified pulse rifle, the weapon disguised to look like a simple projectile gun. Sergeant Cooper, status on our special preparations. Ready and waiting, Captain, Cooper replied from his position. Anti-grav panels are primed. The moment they breach, we can shift the entire bay's gravitational orientation. They won't know which way is up. The first explosion rocked the hull as hegemony boarding pods began cutting through. Lieutenant Davidson's voice came through their tactical channel. Captain Rodriguez, sensors show 36 hostile boarders. Their combat data suggests they're using standard hegemony boarding formations. Acknowledge, Rodriguez replied. Time to teach them why humans right front toward enemy on our claymores. Execute Operation House Party. The first breach point exploded inward, and hegemony troops in sleek battle armor poured through. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons raised, only to find an empty cargo bay. Primitive humans, their commander broadcast on open channels. Surrender now and... Rodriguez cut off the speech with a single command. Flip it. Sergeant Cooper activated the anti-grav panels. Suddenly, what had been the floor became a wall, and what had been the ceiling became the floor. The hegemony troops, their magnetic boots locked to what was now a vertical surface, found themselves completely exposed. Welcome to the party, Rodriguez shouted as her Marines opened fire from their new high ground. Quantum phase rounds ignored the aliens' personal shields, while modified concussion grenades disrupted their suit systems. Impossible, the hegemony commander shouted. Their weapons are registered as simple kinetic devices. Yeah, about that, Rodriguez replied, leaping through the zero-gravity space with practiced ease. Her armor's thrusters, disguised as decorative patterns, allowed her to dance between cargo containers. We humans have a saying, appearances can be deceiving. The hegemony troops tried to adapt, but their rigid training worked against them. When Rodriguez's team shifted the gravity again, making what had been a wall into the new floor, the aliens' formation broke completely. Ma'am, Private Chen called out. They're trying to hack our gravity controls. Perfect, Rodriguez grinned. Spring the trap. The moment the hegemony forces accessed what they thought was the gravity control system, their suit computers were flooded with human memes and cat videos. Their advanced combat systems, trying to process what they interpreted as weapon data, began to crash. "Captain," Davidson's voice came through again. "More boarding pods incoming. Looks like they're sending their elite units." "Even better," Rodriguez replied, signaling her team to take new positions. "Time for Phase 2. Show them why we named our combat protocols after practical jokes." The second wave of hegemony troops breached the hull, only to find their earlier forces in complete disarray. They moved to assist and triggered the holographic projectors. Suddenly, the cargo bay seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Each cargo container multiplied 1,000 times in perfect fractal patterns. The hegemony's visual systems, attempting to map the impossible space, began to overload. "Remember, folks," Rodriguez broadcast to her team, "we're not just fighting them. We're teaching them why humans write warning labels on everything." Sometimes the obvious solution is exactly what they don't expect. As her Marines moved through the holographic maze with practiced ease, Rodriguez smiled beneath her helmet. The hegemony was about to learn another fundamental truth about humanity. Just because we label something as dangerous doesn't mean we won't use it to our advantage. Navigation Officer Ryan "Pinball" Turner studied the holographic display of the asteroid field with the same intensity he once reserved for late-night arcade tournaments. His neural interface processed trajectory calculations faster than any computer alone, combining human intuition with machine precision. "Captain," he called out, fingers dancing across his console, "I'm seeing a perfect setup for the Minnesota Fat Special." Captain Thompson raised an eyebrow, remembering Turner's background as a champion pool player before joining the Space Force. "Show me." The main display lit up with projected trajectories, turning the chaotic asteroid field into an intricate web of possible paths. To the untrained eye, it looked like mathematical madness. To Turner, it was a perfect game of cosmic pool. "Their formation has 3 structural weak points," Turner explained, highlighting key positions in the hologram. "If we time it right, we can use the Magellan's mass to redirect these larger asteroids. Basic geometry meets gravitational physics. They'll either break formation or collide with each other." Lieutenant Mitchell smirked from her helm station. "You want to play pool with a warship?" "More like snooker with a side of nuclear physics," Turner replied, his fingers never stopping their dance across the controls. The hegemony ships always maintain specific distances from each other. They're so focused on perfect spacing that they won't be able to react fast enough when we change the rules of the game. On his command ship, X-Thrax watched the human vessel approach the asteroid field with growing concern. His tactical officers had assured him that no ship could safely navigate through such dense debris at combat speeds. "They're accelerating," his sensor officer reported in disbelief. "Their trajectory suggests, but that's impossible. They appear to be attempting to use our own mass shadows against us." "Explain," X-Thrax demanded. "They're plotting a course that will force us to either break formation or risk collision with redirected asteroids. But the calculations required for such precision would take our computers hours to process." Turner's voice carried across the Magellan's bridge, calm and focused. "Beginning approach. Lieutenant Mitchell, I'll need precise throttle control on my mark. Think of it like a cue stick. We're not just hitting the rocks, we're controlling where they go after the hit." Mitchell nodded, her hands hovering over the engine controls. "Ready when you are, Pinball." The Magellan surged forward, its movement suddenly precise and deliberate. Turner's calculations guided them through the asteroid field like a master playing a complex trick shot. The ship's gravitational wake caught the first massive asteroid exactly as planned. "Contact in 3, 2, 1. Turner counted down. English on the first shot. The asteroid spun away from the Magellan's pass, its new trajectory perfectly calculated. The hegemony fleet's rigid formation meant they could only track threats based on direct approach vectors. They never considered the possibility of bank shots. "Sir," X-Thrax's tactical officer shouted, "multiple debris impacts imminent. The humans are somehow coordinating the asteroid movements." Impossible, Extract snarled. No species can calculate such complex gravitational interactions in real time. The first redirected asteroid slammed into the space between two hegemony destroyers. They broke formation to avoid collision, exactly as Turner had predicted. The disruption created a cascade effect, forcing other ships to adjust their positions. Second shot lined up, Turner announced, his hands flying across his controls. Captain, requesting permission for the Triple Bank massacre. Thompson watched as the tactical display showed the hegemony fleet's formerly perfect formation dissolving into chaos. Granted, Mr. Turner. Show them why we put a pool table in the officers' lounge. The Magellan executed a series of precise maneuvers, each one catching and redirecting another asteroid. Turner had turned the debris field into a cosmic pool table, with hegemony ships as unwilling participants in his game. Breakup complete, Davidson reported from Tactical. Their formation is scattered. Fleet cohesion down to 30% and falling. You know what they say about physics, Turner said, lining up his next shot. It's all about the fundamentals. And sometimes, the best way to win isn't with the most advanced technology. It's with the oldest tricks in the book. Mitchell laughed as she executed another precision burn. Remind me never to play pool with you, pinball. Too late, Turner replied, watching another asteroid find its mark. We're all playing now. And the hegemony just learned their way behind on their bar game skills. Chief Engineer Michael O'Reilly stood in his domain, the Magellan's engineering bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time data from the ship's quantum fabrication systems. The remains of destroyed hegemony vessels floated in space around them, each piece a potential resource waiting to be repurposed. Captain, O'Reilly called through the comm system, his Irish brogue thick with excitement. Remember how the brass thought I was crazy for installing molecular reconstruction arrays in our tractor beams? Thompson's voice carried a note of amusement. I recall something about unnecessary engineering modifications in your personnel file. Well, sir, I'm about to prove that sometimes the crazy ideas are the best ones. O'Reilly's fingers danced across his control panel. Ms. Ramirez, would you be a dear and patch some Wagner through the ship's external speakers? I'm thinking Ride of the Valkyries would be appropriate. The communications officer grinned. Coming right up, Chief. Broadcasting on all frequencies. The powerful orchestral piece boomed across space as the Magellan's tractor beams activated, grabbing chunks of destroyed hegemony ships. The molecular reconstruction arrays hummed to life, their quantum fields analyzing and reorganizing matter at the atomic level. What are they doing? Extrax demanded, watching the bizarre display. They're collecting our destroyed vessels. Sir, his science officer reported, they're somehow restructuring the molecular bonds of our hull materials. It's as if they're rebuilding them into something else. O'Reilly coordinated with his engineering team, their neural interfaces synchronizing their efforts. All right, lads and lasses, time to show them why humans never throw anything away. Initiating transformation sequence. The debris began to change shape, the advanced materials of hegemony ships reconstructed into deadly new forms. What had been elegant alien hull plates became makeshift weapons platforms, their own technology turned against them. First wave complete, O'Reilly announced. We've got ourselves a dozen autonomous defense drones, built from their own destroyers. The quantum computers are rewriting their command protocols now. Lieutenant Davidson watched his tactical display with appreciation. The new units are integrating with our targeting systems. Their own shield frequencies are still coded into the materials. They'll be invisible to hegemony defenses. The music reached a crescendo as the newly created drones moved into attack formation. O'Reilly continued his work, each piece of debris becoming another weapon in their arsenal. You know what they say about one man's trash, Captain. Being another man's arsenal, Thompson suggested. I was thinking more along the lines of being a remarkably effective way to ruin someone's day, O'Reilly replied. Second wave ready. These ones are special. Converted their fancy sensor arrays into electromagnetic pulse generators. They'll never expect their own technology to be used for such primitive warfare. The hegemony fleet watched in horror as their destroyed comrades were transformed into instruments of their own destruction. The human ship now conducted its improvised orchestra of war, each new creation adding to the symphony of chaos. "This is sacrilege," Xthrax roared. "They're defiling our sacred technology." Ramirez's voice carried across the bridge, barely containing her laughter. "They're discussing whether this violates their religious prohibitions against recycling military equipment. Apparently, we're tech necromancers now." "Well then," O'Reilly said, initiating another reconstruction sequence, "let's give them a proper horror show." Activating the final phase, converting their quantum shield generators into localized reality distortion fields. The space around the Magellan warped as the rebuilt technology came online. The hegemony's remaining sensors couldn't determine where the human ship ended and their own reconstructed technology began. "Chief," Thompson called out, "I believe you've officially earned that bottle of Jameson you've been saving." "Not yet, sir," O'Reilly replied, his hand still moving across his controls. "Still got a few more surprises in store. After all, it's not every day you get to teach an advanced alien civilization about the human concepts of recycling and improvised weaponry." Ramirez adjusted the music's volume. "They're broadcasting warnings about demonic possession of technology now. Should I send them the Earth Wikipedia entry on upcycling?" "Better not," O'Reilly chuckled. "Let them think it's magic. Sometimes the best defense is letting your enemy believe they're fighting something they can't understand, even when the truth is simply that humans never could resist taking things apart to see if we could put them back together better." Supreme War Leader Xthrax stood amid the wreckage of his command center, watching as his once proud fleet drifted in disarray. Warning lights flashed across damaged consoles, while his crew waited in terrified silence for the humans to deliver their final strike. The mighty hegemony, undisputed masters of 5 sectors, had been thoroughly dismantled by what they'd dismissed as a primitive species. "My lord," his communications officer reported, mandibles trembling, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." Xthrax straightened his posture, determined to face extinction with dignity. "Put it through." The holographic display activated, revealing Captain Thompson's image. The human commander sat casually in his chair, holding what appeared to be a glass containing an amber liquid. "Supreme War Leader," Thompson said, raising his glass in a friendly gesture, "I believe we got off on the wrong foot. Would you care to join me for a drink? We have an excellent selection of Earth whiskeys aboard, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on tactical innovations." Xthrax's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "You wish to share intoxicants? After destroying half our fleet?" "Technically," Lieutenant Mitchell chimed in from her station, "we only disabled your fleet. Chief O'Reilly's teams are already helping repair critical systems on your vessels. The quantum reconstruction technology works both ways, after all." Indeed, Xthrax could see human engineering teams moving between damaged hegemony ships, their primitive tools somehow restoring technologies they shouldn't even understand. "I don't understand," Xthrax admitted. "You have us at your mercy. Why offer assistance?" Thompson smiled, taking the sip from his glass. "Because that's what humans do. We fight like devils when we have to, but we prefer to make friends when we can. The battle was just our way of earning your respect. Now comes the important part: diplomacy." Commander Walker's voice carried across the channel. "Besides, we really want to compare notes on ship designs. Your energy distribution systems are fascinating, even if they're a bit rigid in their current configuration." "Rigid?" Xthrax couldn't keep the confusion from his voice. "Our systems are the pinnacle of efficiency." "Efficient, yes," O'Reilly joined in, his engineering crews still working on repairs. "But they lack adaptability. Add a few quantum feedback loops, maybe some dynamic power routing. We could help you improve your output by at least 300%. Lieutenant Davidson's tactical display showed the ongoing repairs. "Your targeting systems are impressive too. They just need some flexibility programming." Not everything needs to follow perfect geometric patterns. Speaking of patterns, Turner added, I'd love to show you how we calculate those asteroid ricochetts. Maybe set up a pool table in the diplomatic lounge. Strax found himself overwhelmed not by human weapons, but by human friendliness. You wish to share your technology after we attacked you? Why not? Thompson replied. You've already seen what we can do in a fight. Wouldn't you rather see what we can accomplish as allies? Besides, Lieutenant Ramirez has been dying to organize a cultural exchange program. It's true, Ramirez confirmed. We've got centuries of human music, art, and entertainment to share. Have you ever heard jazz? Or seen cat videos? Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation from where she was helping secure damaged hegemony hull sections. Plus, we need someone to explain why our warning labels are actually important. Might help prevent future misunderstandings. Thompson set his glass down, his expression becoming more serious but maintaining its warmth. What do you say, Supreme War Leader? Shall we start over? This time with handshakes instead of weapons fire. Strax looked around his command center, at his crew who now watched the humans with curiosity rather than fear. In all the hegemony's history, no species had ever defeated them so thoroughly or offered friendship so genuinely immediately afterward. I believe, Strax said slowly, I would very much like to try this whiskey of yours, and perhaps learn why your species finds such joy in combat, yet seeks peace with such enthusiasm. Excellent. Thompson stood from his chair. Lieutenant Mitchell, dock us with the hegemony command ship. Mr. O'Reilly, break out the good stuff from Engineering's Special Reserve. Ms. Ramirez, prepare the cultural exchange packages. He turned back to Strax with a grin. I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And if not, Rodriguez added cheerfully, we can always go back to showing you why humans put warning labels on everything.